It all started on an ordinary day until I returned home to a scene straight out of a horror movie, my cherished trees, felled by the HOA, while I, a federal judge, was about to bring justice crashing down like a wrecking ball. I remember it like it was yesterday. I had always thought that my little patch of paradise, my home with its sprawling yard, filled with ancient oak trees and whispering pines, was a safe haven, a sanctuary from the bustling chaos of everyday life. I'd moved into this charming neighborhood with the belief that nature and privacy were my birthrights. But I soon learned that even the most serene places can hide storms behind their manicured lawns. For years, the local homeowners association, HOA, was a constant, nagging presence. Their newsletters, filled with rules and petty suggestions, had always felt more like whispers of control than helpful reminders. At the helm was Marjorie, an imposing, stern woman known around the block as HOA Karen. Her sharp tongue and rigid adherence to community standards had made her infamous, but I'd always maintained my distance. After all, I'd learned early in my career, as a federal judge, that discretion and calm could defuse even the most volatile situations. Then, one sunny afternoon, I returned home from a long day in court. As I turned onto my street, an unsettling silence replaced the usual hum of conversation and the laughter of children playing. Something was off. When I reached my driveway, my heart sank. My once thriving garden, with its majestic trees that had sheltered family picnics and lazy summer afternoons, was unrecognizable. The yard was strewn with tree stumps and splintered wood, the remnants of what used to be vibrant, life-giving trees. I approached the scene slowly, my mind racing. How could this be? I scanned the area for any clues. That's when I noticed it. A pickup truck, its side emblazoned with the HOA's logo, idling near the entrance. I felt a chill, not just from the cool breeze, but from the realization that this wasn't an accident. Marjorie, the self-appointed enforcer of community standards, had taken it upon herself to cut down my trees, believing they violated some arbitrary aesthetic rule. The initial shock soon gave way to a steely resolve. I walked up to the truck, my footsteps echoing in the silence. There she was, Marjorie, waiting for me with a rehearsed, condescending smile. "I'm so glad you're home," she began, her tone dripping with feigned sympathy. "We were just making sure the neighborhood stays beautiful. Your trees, well, they just didn't fit our standards." I stared at her, trying to mask the fury boiling beneath the surface. "So, let me get this straight," I replied calmly. "You entered my property without permission and decided my trees didn't meet your personal idea of beauty?" Her confident facade faltered for just a moment before she attempted to reassert control. "It's all about community harmony, you know," she said, trying to downplay the intrusion. But I wasn't buying it. I thought back to the countless emails and stern letters I had received over the years. They were all trivial until now, a clear display of abuse of power. I knew then that I couldn't let this injustice go unanswered. I invited her to sit and explain her reasoning further, but my mind was already mapping out the path to justice. Later that evening, in the quiet of my study, I reviewed every piece of evidence I had. Security camera footage, neighbor testimonials, and the HOA's own documents confirmed one damning truth. Not only was my property outside the jurisdiction of the HOA, but the organization itself was rife with irregularities. I discovered that many of the so-called community standards were nothing more than arbitrary rules used to maintain Marjorie's tight grip on power. Worse still, there were discrepancies in the financial reports, a trail of money that vanished into the murk of fraudulent transactions. Armed with the evidence, I began reaching out to my neighbors. Over coffee and casual chats, I presented my findings. To my surprise, many had felt similarly oppressed, quietly suffering under Marjorie's micromanagement. They were tired of the petty fines and the ever-tightening leash of an association that claimed to serve them, but instead exploited them. The conversation quickly morphed into a call for collective action. Within days, the neighborhood was abuzz with whispers of rebellion. At the next HOA meeting, a cramped, overly decorated room that was meant to be a symbol of unity, I stood before a gathering of frustrated residents. With measured calm, I laid out the evidence of illegal activity, the unlawful tree removal, and the financial misdeeds that had plagued our community. I placed a thick stack of documents on the table, screenshots of transactions, copies of the town hall's environmental report, and even the security footage that captured every unforgivable moment. The room fell silent. Marjorie, once so commanding, now looked like a woman cornered. Her voice faltered as she tried to justify her actions. "It was an administrative error," she began, but I interrupted her with a gentle yet firm reminder. When you trespass on someone's property and violate the law, it's not an error, it's a crime. The atmosphere shifted palpably. Neighbors, once timid and resigned, now found their voices. They spoke of their own grievances, of the constant pressure to conform to an ideal that was neither theirs nor their community's. The unity in that room was electrifying. It was a moment when ordinary people, empowered by the truth, decided to stand up for their rights. In the weeks that followed, the wheels of justice began turning. I filed an official complaint with the local authorities, and the town hall launched a thorough investigation into the HOA's practices. Inspectors visited my property, confirming that the tree removal was both unauthorized and environmentally irresponsible. Simultaneously, I forwarded the financial irregularities to the government's auditing department, which began to unravel the extensive web of fraud that had been built up over the years. As the investigation progressed, Marjorie's influence started to crumble. The HOA funds were frozen, and legal actions were initiated. Soon, the residents, emboldened by their newfound solidarity, elected a new management team, one committed to transparency and genuine community service. The transformation was remarkable. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a spirit of collaboration and respect. I often reflect on that turbulent time as a lesson in the power of standing up for what's right. I didn't have to shout or resort to aggression. I simply relied on the law, the truth, and the strength of community. The downfall of the corrupt HOA wasn't just a personal victory, it was a win for every resident who had suffered under the guise of community standards. Now, whenever I see the bare stumps where my beloved trees once stood, I'm reminded that sometimes destruction paves the way for renewal. In the end, justice prevailed, and a lesson was learned. Those who abuse power eventually face the consequences, especially when confronted by someone who knows the law inside and out. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it inspires you to stand up for what's right, no matter how daunting the opposition might seem. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Storytime tales that remind us all that courage and integrity can truly change the world.